Welcome to Blog Talk Radio in high fidelity.
Broadcasting from Cincinnati, you're listening to the Ringside Reporter podcast. All the news from the world of boxing right here.
Well, I'm talking to you the way I want to talk to you.
Now, here's your host, Eric Lorda.
And we are live. Welcome to the Ringside Reporter podcast, where we talk about the latest boxing news. If it's related to boxing, we'll talk about it here. My name is Eric Lorta, and I'm here with my co-host, Ringside Robert, and England's adopted son, Joe Habib. We have a great show for you today, and as always, you can catch us on the web at ringsidereporter.com. If you want to call and ask some questions, you can call in right now at 323-870-3857. We'll be here till about 9 o'clock tonight, and today we are going to talk about Louis Ortiz has been removed from the Deontay Wilder fight. It is official. Wilder gets a new opponent. We'll talk about that. Hall of Fame ballots are out, and we'll tell you the big names on them. And Miguel Cotto's final fight is set, and it will be against one of the best fighters on the planet. Come on, man. We're talking about Miguel Cotto. It ain't going to be against one. Come on. You know who it's going to be against. But first, we get started with the World Boxing Super Series. And I'm glad that we just found this out. Me and Beeb were talking about this before we came on air. And I'm calling this the Super Six constantly. And Beeb did it. He called it the Super Six also before we came on air. For whatever reason, we just get it. It's just, I guess maybe because it's a year, it was established in Europe or over, across the pond, whatever. I don't know, but it's the World Boxing Super Series. Chris Eubank versus Avni Yildirim. Eubank scored a third-round KO over Avni Yildirim on Saturday night in Germany. The fight was all Chris Eubank Jr. as he dropped Yildirim in the first round, then finished the job in the third round. It was a vicious combination that dropped Yildirim, and the bout was waved off immediately. For everybody who was complaining that it was a quick stoppage, and I read quite a few comments on that where, the referee caught him before he went, the guy went down and the referee didn't really give a count. He just kind of stopped it. I urge you to go back and watch Yildirim's eyes as he gets hit with this combination. He was out before he hit the floor. You could see it in his eyes. I mean, he got hit. You could see it. He's gone. As he got to his feet, it was completely obvious he was in no condition to fight. My opinion, the referee made the right call on this one, no question about it. He takes another shot, hey, that could be bad news. He took a bunch of shots in the fight, and it was only 3 rounds worth. Eubank looked great in this fight, I thought. I picked him to win. He was my favorite to win the boxing Super Series. Robert, I'm not sure. Did you caught the fight? Yeah.
Yes, I did.
What did you think?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Audience Channel. Thank you for DirecTV. It was a good fight while it lasted, but I totally agree with the referee. He did the right thing. And, wow, the possibility of Chris Eubank and George Groves, sign me up. I'm ready.
There you go. Beeb, what were your thoughts on Chris Eubank Jr.?
Well, he did what we expected him to do. No surprises. Obviously, he was a much better fighter. And thing about him is he's very dynamic. He's explosive. And you may say, okay, well, look who he's in there with. But if he lands that shot against anyone, he could get them out of there. He's just that explosive, and he just has that surprise factor, but not totally unorthodox enough to the point where he can't defend himself. So, you can look at things, fighters like Chris Eubank Jr., you can compare him to like Prince Nassim Hamed. But the thing about him is to be a little bit better balanced in his attack. He defends very well, and he's a little bit more versatile. He can get down and dirty when he wants to, but also he could fight intelligently on the outside. He can set shots up when he wants to. So he just doesn't leap in irresponsibly with his offense. I think he's a systematic assassin type guy, and I think he's a danger. I think on any given night he could beat anyone in that division, to be perfectly honest with you. And I think he hits hard enough to be able to get anyone out of there. So did what he was supposed to do, and sometimes in this world, of boxing, there's a mental letdown, and fighters don't always do what they're supposed to do. Well, there was no mental letdown for Chris Eubank Jr. in this fight. He took care of business, and I'm excited too about a potential George Groves fight for the finale in this tournament. I think that's what everyone wants.
Yeah, modern broadcast in the chat just says we still don't know any more about Chris Eubank as a super middleweight, and I disagree with that. I think that he showed a lot. If you're referring to as the level of opponent, maybe, but I think Chris Eubank, he doesn't look any different at super middleweight than he did any other time. I mean, I think that he throws punches. He's got power. He's got that get you out of there kind of power. He moves his head very well. He's defensively responsible. I think like I said, that's why I picked him. I think that he's a full package. He really is. And I think that the fact that he didn't fight Triple G at 160, I think that was probably a good move on their part. Getting him some more seasoning, and he's like I said, I think he's right there. Joe, what were your thoughts? I mean, going forward, do you think that do you look at him as the favorite? Do you look at him? How do you see him going forward?
Well, I think he's going to win this tournament. As much as I respect George Groves as a fighter, he brings the physical elements to the table, the same physical elements, I should say, to the table that Chris Eubank Jr. does. Chris Eubank Jr., I think, is faster. I think he's a harder puncher. I think he's a lot more slicker defensively.
Yeah.
I think that he can fight outside, but he can also mix it up and throw those sneaky uppercuts on the inside too. So I just think that Chris Eubank Jr. is going to bring a little bit too much for George Groves. So George Groves is a very good fighter. He's got an excellent jab. He fights very well on the outside. But I think the problem lies when you kind of crowd George Groves. And you don't allow him to, establish the range and don't let him feel comfortable on the outside. When you crowd him and you press him, sometimes he doesn't always react well. Falls apart a little bit defensively. And I could see Chris Eubank Jr. Pour on the pressure. I think, there's times when Chris Eubank Jr. will lie back, play the counterpunch role, but when he wants to step on the gas pedal, he wants to be aggressive, he could kick it up a notch and really up the pace of a fight at any time. You've seen him do that. The only problem was early in his career, he seemed to fade a little bit. I think now, he's more relaxed in there. I think he's grown into another weight class, so he's probably a little bit more healthier. Tall guy, he's big bone, he's very muscular. So it's good to see him move up to 168 and be healthy, whereas maybe at 160, he was peeling off too much weight. So I think the one chink in his armor was the stamina and just being able to stay focused throughout the whole course of the fight. And I think he's corrected those two things. Obviously, we haven't seen him in there with a real top-level guy, someone who could press him. Against Billy Joe Saunders early on, and they were both at the same point in their careers. But we saw what happened with Billy Joe Saunders. Billy Joe Saunders became a champion. I had some pretty good victories, most notably over Andy Lee, which was a very good victory, I felt. But, can Chris Eubank Jr. get better? Probably, because he's still young. He's still in his 20s, right? Mm-hmm. Has he improved since the middleweight days? I would say that based off of what those two things that I mentioned that I feel he's corrected. So I think, like I said, on any given night, I think Chris Eubank Jr. can beat anybody. But my fighter in this division, who I really, really like, is Gilberto Ramirez. I think he's the dark horse, the WBO super middleweight champion. It's a shame that he wasn't in this tournament. It's a shame that James DeGale wasn't in this tournament. It's a shame that David Benavidez wasn't in this tournament. Champions were not in this tournament. The only champion that was in this tournament is George Groves. And with all due respect to the IBO, I don't really hold them in high regard. But Chris Eubank Jr. does have that IBO title. But if he fights George Groves, that would still be a real feather in his cap if he got a victory there, and it would even be a bigger feather. He can do it in an impressive fashion, getting a victory over George Groves, because we know George Groves down in his career, but when he's up, he's a tall task and a solid challenge for anybody. But hopefully, the winner of this tournament will move on to James DeGale James DeGale fight in the UK would seem like a natural for the winner of this tournament. So hopefully we can see fights like that down the road. I think that would prove who really is the best fighter in the division. But again, series tournament would still be a good accolade to have on your resume.
It's funny. We were talking about that before the show too. We talked about, the lack of, like I said, there's no Gilberto Ramirez in it. There's no, there's a lot of people missing for this tournament. But that being said, George Groves getting in this tournament, Chris Eubank getting in this tournament. Hey,
Yeah.
Everybody had an opportunity to get in. They weren't going to turn any big name down. They wanted the bigger the names, the better. So they all had an opportunity to get in there, and they just didn't for whatever reason. Good exposure. Well, I don't know if I can say good exposure, but
Well, what's the total prize money for this tournament? Like, what's the
is it $1 million? Is it $1 million or $5 million or something like that?
I'm gonna have to do some research on that.
It's something like that. But let me comment on what Beeb had to say. Look at the list of champions he just listed. Him and Ramirez, Eubank and Ramirez, Eubank and Benavidez, Eubank and DeGale. All of those would be good fights. I do think that Chris Eubank will fight George Groves next, because I think George Groves will win the next fight, and that'll be set up for January, from what I understand from listening to the broadcast yesterday. And I think that's a heck of a setup, and I think Chris Eubank Jr. has found the proper division for him to be in. He'll be competitive against any of those people, provided boxing politics doesn't get in the way and prevent some of these fights. Was yesterday's opponent worthwhile? Maybe not, but on top of him winning that fight yesterday, he now becomes the #1 mandatory challenger for the WBC 168-pound title. And I forget who has that belt, but he's now the #1 contender for that, because
David Benavidez has that title. He just won it. He just won the vacant WBC title over Gravel.
Right. So, there you go. So there you go. David Benavidez is going to have to deal at some point with Chris Eubank Jr. And he's a younger kid. It might be the perfect scenario. Say Eubank beats George Groves. It might be the perfect scenario for Eubank to come to the States, say some point next year, and take that title. Who knows?
There you go. Robert, let me ask you a quick question just before we move on to the next topic here. Referee make the right call on this one? Good stoppage? No?
I firmly believe that he did. I can see why people would have a dispute, but he looked bad.
Yeah.
The fighter really looked bad, and I think the referee made a good call here.
Very good. Let's keep it across the pond here. Anthony Crolla versus Ricky Burns. Anthony Crolla won a unanimous decision over Ricky Burns by the scores of 116-113, 117-112, and 116-114. Crolla honestly was just the busier of the two fighters. It was a good fight, not a great fight. I don't really have much to add. This was kind of I'm glad to see Crolla advance. Tough night for Ricky Burns, but kind of what I expected. That if you're busy against Ricky Burns, you're probably going to get that nod. That's kind of where it is now, Robert, what were your thoughts on this one?
Well, the right guy won, and I don't like judges giving even rounds. 116, 114. Come on. There was no knockdowns. It was a good, clean fight. But I always score, unless there's a knockdown, I always score my rounds 10-9. I had it 115, 113 for Crolla. I don't see.
That's what I had. That's what I had.
I had the same score. I see no point in having a 116, 113 or 116, 114. There's no point in giving somebody extra points. The rounds that Ricky Burns won, he won. The rounds that Crolla won, he won. I hate the fact that that judges, especially European judges, seem to want to hand out 10-10 rounds. It's not necessary. The right guy won, and I couldn't believe after the fight, Crolla said, well, I'll be glad to fight Ricky again. And Ricky Burns wasn't even upset that he lost. He's like, he just took it in stride. And they asked him, well, do you want to fight him again? Of course I want to fight him again. I mean, I don't know. Normally, if a fighter thinks he won and he lost, when you interview them, you've seen it 100 times. The fighter clearly states his opinion that he thought he won, and he wasn't upset at all. I think Ricky Burns has had his day, and yes, it would be a good rematch, but it's not necessary. Crolla is probably going to go on and fight one of the 135-pound champions. And, depending on which one he fights, he'll probably get disposed of, and he'll probably be put on the sidelines. As we said last week, this was the fight, the loser is done, and the winner only had maybe one more fight left, and that's the way I view this.
Yeah, I agree with that. Beeb, what were your thoughts on the fight?
Robbie said that the loser is done, but we've said that so many times about Ricky Burns, and he's turned into the Freddy Krueger of boxing. He somehow finds his way into getting some decent fights, and this was a decent fight for him. Robbie mentioned about Burns not being upset. Well, I think he realizes that he lost the fight deep down. I think that he realizes he put up a good fight. He was in there. Fights where the scorecard, at least my scorecard and Robbie's scorecard, reflected that the fight was close. But you have those fights that you add up the points at the end. It's a close scorecard victory. But this was a clear, close decision. I thought that it looked at points in this fight that Crolla was just going to run away with it. But I think he faded a little bit late in the fight. I think Burns took advantage of that when Crolla started to slow down a bit. But with that being said, Ricky Burns definitely is not a top-level lightweight right now. I think a lot of guys can beat him. I think a lot of guys can beat Crolla. But as we mentioned earlier, Crolla is younger, has more in the tank, and he pushed the pace in this fight. And I think he fought this fight at a pace that Ricky Burns could not deal with. He was not comfortable with. Ricky Burns wanted to, use the ring a little bit. He wanted distance. He wanted to be able to use his jab on the outside. But the problem was we got to give Crolla credit because we look at Crolla a lot and we just think he's like one of those grinder, workman-like type guys. But he's more sophisticated than that. He got low, moved his head very well, threw a feint here and there before jabbing, and he was able to wiggle and finagle his way in there. And when he got in there, he moved his hands. He was throwing particularly to the body. And credit to him for being in phenomenal shape, because even when he started to fade a little bit, he got his second win in the later rounds. Although I did give Burns the 12th, I still thought that Crolla picked it back up in the 10th and 11th. And this was an entertaining fight. Neither guy really has huge knockout power, but we've seen Burns, display a little bit of power. In other fights, one fight there with Kevin Mitchell was a fight where we blew him out of there, and he actually fought him pretty well on the inside. I think those days are gone. I don't think we're going to see any more explosive type performances like we did from Ricky Burns, like we did in that Kevin Mitchell fight, because I think that was probably one of his best victories in terms of impressive fashion, the way he won that fight. So with that being said, I think Crolla moves on. Am I going to sit there and say that Burns is done? Well, maybe he should be done in a lot of people's minds, but he's able to really still hang in there with these guys. Even against Terrence Crawford, he lost the fight clearly, but he was in there. Like Crawford had to earn every round in that fight. It wasn't like a blowout. It wasn't like you see a guy in there that is just totally dominating. Obviously, he was winning the fight clearly. But Burns just does enough to make you have to work in there, and if you don't work, he can make you pay for not working. So, he's not going to be probably a world champion again, but he'll still be a good gatekeeper for a lot of these young and up and coming guys coming up. And he doesn't really seem to be getting hurt in any of these fights badly. So if he wants to continue and wants to make a living in this sport, then I don't really have a problem with it. I mean, just hopefully if he does get hurt, he knows when to step out so he doesn't, put him in a position where he's going to suffer a lot of residual damage. We don't know what's going to happen when he retires. We're not taking the shots, but just from my observation, it doesn't look like he's taken any real beatings in the sport. So I can understand why he hangs around there.
Yeah, sometimes that's the thing. I mean, when you don't take a beating, like a solid beating or whatever, you tend to stick around. And yeah, I don't know. Hopefully, I mean, I like I said, man, I don't want to see. I think this was like a loser leave town match. I don't really want to see Burns again because I don't think he's at that level anymore. I don't know. Connor Benn versus Nathan Clark. Connor Benn continued to win as he beats Nathan Clark in the first round. I think if they move him along the right way, and don't rush him, he's going to be very good, very solid kid.
Yeah.
Eric, he looked good yesterday.
Yeah.
He really looked good yesterday.
Yeah.
And Eddie Hearn said after the fight he will be on the he'll be in New York on November 11th. He doesn't know if HBO will show him, but that's his next fight.
Good. That's what he needs to do. That's what he needs to do is get some exposure, get out there, and get some press, man. Get his name out there other than in England, Sam Eggington versus Muhammad Mimoune. I don't know, but I should know. Mimoune won a unanimous decision over Sam Eggington by the scores of 116-112, 115-113, and it was a split decision actually for 116-112 for Eggington. So Mimoune wins, beats Eggington. Did either one of you catch this fight? This is one I did not catch.
I actually missed this one as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
This fight.
Yes, I did.
What did you think?
Yeah, I caught it. They had technical issues during part of it, but I believe Muhammad clearly won the fight. And once again, Joe's friend Eddie announced after the fight that Sam would be moving up to 154. I guess he had trouble making weight for this fight, so they've decided to move him up to 154 in the future. So we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, nice job, Eddie Hearn, matchmaker extraordinaire right there. Ruining careers, Joe.
That's a very minority. That's a minority opinion right there.
A very minority opinion.
We're gonna have a hater every now and then.
What do you think about Eggington Beeb at 154? You think he'll be able to hang there?
He's a big kid. He's tall. He's lanky. But the problem is the power, the punching power.
Right.
He's not gonna beat a Charlo. Charlo at 154. He's not gonna beat a Lara.
No.
No,
he's not going to be.
He's not going to beat a Jared Hurd.
No. But hopefully he puts himself in a position to make those paydays. And get the fight.
But then again, at 147, then again at 147, there's no cupcakes for him down there either. So
no. Just he's overmatched in a lot of ways. Yeah, I like him, but he is overmatched in a lot of ways.
Well, you know what? He did us all a favor, and he put Paulie behind a microphone permanently, and that's a good thing.
Oh, what's the matter with you? Why would you say something like that? It's so awful, man.
Well, he did his best.
Yeah, he's got a family. What's the matter with you?
I know. Come on. Gotta have fun at somebody's expense, right?
Wow. Oh, that's terrible. All right, let's talk about the upcoming fights here. Friday, October 13th from Indio, California on ESPN Deportes, Fidel Maldonado Jr. versus Ismael Barrasso, 10 rounds junior welterweights, and Pablo Cesar Cano versus Marcelino Lopez, 10 rounds junior welterweights. That same night on Robbie's favorite station, Telemundo, Daniel Lozano versus Ricardo Rodriguez. It's a rematch, 10 rounds bantamweights. And on October 14th, this is loaded. From Carson, California, PBC on Fox Sports, Leo Santa Cruz versus Chris Avalos, 12 rounds for Santa Cruz's WBA super featherweight title. Also on the undercard, Abner Maris versus Andres Gutierrez, 12 rounds for Maris's WBA regular featherweight title. I don't know who holds the irregular featherweight title, but it's not him. Eddie Ramirez versus Antonio DeMarco, also on that undercard. Ivan Redkach versus Raynell Williams, also on the undercard. Now, whether they show him or not, that I don't know.
Probably not.
Yeah, probably not. Later that evening on Showtime. Go ahead.
Those will probably be FS1 specials. Anyway, go ahead.
Could be. Later on that night on Showtime, the big one, the triple header. This is amazing. Amazing. Arislandi Lara versus Terrell Gachet. 12 rounds for Lara's WBA junior middleweight title. Jermel Charlo versus Erickson Lubin. I can't wait for that fight.
That's an awesome fight, man.
For Charlo's WBC junior middleweight title. And Jarrett Swift Hurd versus Austin Trout. 12 rounds for Hurd's IBF junior middleweight title. Also on the undercard, Tony Harrison versus Paul Valenzuela. Cindy Serrano versus Adina Kiss. And Justin Hurd, Jared's little brother, versus Steven Andrade. 6 rounds junior middleweights. Now, I don't know. Again, we don't know if any of those will be televised or not. Also, in London, across the pond, on Audience Network, same-day tape, George Groves versus Jamie Cox. 12 rounds for Groves' WBA super middleweight title. And this is the World Boxing Super Series quarterfinals. On beIN Sports in Espanol, they got a girl fight here. Irma Sanchez versus Brenda Ramos, 10 rounds, females, junior flyweights. And I'm looking. I think that's it until the week after. So, yeah, there we go. So let's talk a little bit.
We have a full Saturday, son.
A full slate, my man. So don't make any plans for next Saturday. So let's talk about this Leo Santa Cruz, Chris Avalos fight and the Abner Maris Gutierrez fight first, the PBC on Fox. I mean, this is clearly a gatekeeper fight. I mean, they're going to match these guys with a rematch. It's a showcase. Santa Cruz and Maris should win easily. I don't see anything that Avalos and Gutierrez. But I think the bigger thing is I'm not a big fan of the rematch for Santa Cruz and Abner Maris. I don't need to see it.
Yeah, it's a bad style matchup. That's a bad style.
Yeah, I don't need to see this again. Is there? I mean,
wasn't even close.
Yeah,
it wasn't close.
Right. So why are we looking for this rematch?
Frankly, I don't understand what they're doing here. Because they fought the first time. Santa Cruz clearly won. What has Abner Morris done since to earn a possible second shot? I mean, Santa Cruz has done more. He's fought since he fought Morris. He's fought Frampton twice. You know, I think another fighter should be getting a shot at Santa Cruz. Why?
I want to see the rubber match. I want to see the rubber match with him and Frampton. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Don't you want to see the rubber match between Santa Cruz and Frampton? I think that's a great matchup.
Absolutely. But the problem is, I don't know if you're aware of it, Joe, but Frampton switched promoters. He's no longer with Eddie Hearn. He went to Frank Warren.
Yeah, well, good luck with that because either one of those guys will kill your career. Frampton, I'm hearing that Frampton is going to fight in Belfast next. He's going to fight some jobber over in Belfast that nobody's heard of. That'll be his next fight. And, yeah, good luck with that. I mean, he just doesn't capitalize on momentum, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I was aware of Frampton changing promoters, but still, I think it's still a workable fight. I mean,
oh, for sure. For sure.
I don't think PBC has any problems dealing with Frank Warren or Eddie Hearn for that matter.
No. All right, so let's talk about this Showtime card, this triple header, man. This has got me excited, man. Arislandi Lara versus Terrell Gachet, 12 rounds for Lara's WBA junior middleweight title. Wow. This is a big step up for Gachet, man. What are your thoughts on this? I got to pick, you know, if you put a gun to my head, I got to say Lara. I think Lara's been the, you know, he's a tricky fighter. He's a Cuban. He's a fighter, man. There's something about the way he fights that just throws his opponent off. It's going to take a lot of, I think pressure will beat Lara. But I don't know. I think it's going to.
He's really hard to hit clean.
I hate to be pessimistic here, but I don't think Gachet is ready for Andrade Lara. I
don't think so either.
That was kind of my thought when this fight was put together.
Yeah, all the power to him to take in the fight.
I think they're swimming him in deeper waters that he's ready for, and I think Lara will show that on Saturday night. I expect this to be a blowout on the scorecards.
Wow, that was the thing when this was made.
Yeah.
You know, I thought, wow, that's a big step up, man, for Gachet.
Yeah.
And the thing is, man, I really like Gachet. I think we all do, and I think we're all pulling for him to win. But I just don't think he will. I just don't, you know.
Yeah. I think the other fights on the card are much more competitive.
Yeah, let's talk about this Jermell Charlo versus Erickson Lubin fight. Charlo's WBCA junior middleweight title on the line. Yeah, man. I tell you what, every time I see the Charlos, both of them, man, they're getting better and better. Erickson Lubin, man, he's a killer, though, man. That guy can fight.
Yeah.
I this is a toss-up fight. I got to go with Charlo. He's a champion. I mean, I got to go with him. But, man, I'll tell you what, I have a hard time picking against Erickson Lubin, too.
Yeah, I mean, this is great. What you want to see PBC do. You want to see them make these types of matchups, and this is a very significant card. You got a lot of the top guys in the junior middleweight division fighting each other, and it's a shame that we can't see the same thing happening in the welterweight division with all the talent that PBC has at welterweight. It seemed like a no-brainer to have a card like this in the welterweight division, but we'll take it when we can get it, I guess. But pick 'em fight, man. Pick 'em fight. I guess if you put a gun to my head, I'll go with Charlo, but it's not something that I would put a bet in on and go to sleep easy on. It's a tough fight.
Yeah, no.
It's not going to be an easy fight for either guy. It's going to be competitive.
Fight like this. He is ready for a fight like this. But I do have to stick with the Charlo brother. I think once
he's got more experience.
Become champ. Go ahead, Beeb. Sorry.
He's got more experience, and he's been in there with better opposition. But Erickson Lubin, you look at him, he's a solid fighter, man.
No,
he's a solid fighter.
Yeah, I definitely think Charlo will pull this out. I think it'll be a competitive fight. I think it's the best fight on the card, and it's one that all boxing fans should enjoy.
Yeah, it's going to be good. I mean, like I said, man, Lubin is no joke, man. Let's talk about my least favorite fight on the card, Jarrett Hurd versus Austin Trout. I think that Jarrett Hurd, and I'm not a big Jarrett Hurd fan, but I think he walks over Austin Trout. I really do.
I disagree.
After seeing what Charlo did to Trout, man, I don't know, man.
That was a competitive fight, though.
Yeah.
No, Eric, I disagree with you. I think Austin Trout will take this belt.
Wow.
And I think he'll remind everybody how good he still is. I think this is too much for Jarrett Hurd to handle. Austin Trout has been on this stage before. He's been a champion. He wins this fight.
Wow, Beeb, tiebreaker here.
I'm going to agree with Robbie. I'm going with the upset here. I've seen Jarrett Hurd look kind of shaky. Seems to be very easy to hit. He's a little bit plodding and lethargic in there sometimes. He's a strong kid. He's a pretty good body puncher, heavy hitter, but doesn't seem to be very fluid with his combination punches. Reminds me a little bit of a Margarito type, with all due respect. I mean, I just don't think there's a lot of sophistication to his offense. I don't want to minimize the guy in any way, but I just think he's more of a physical guy, a guy that puts on a lot of pressure, a guy that wears you down with his presence more so and his strength and power. He seems a little bit one-dimensional. He likes to plod forward, and he likes to just slug it out on the inside. I think if you go in and out on him, which Austin Trout is very good at doing, balance, and you can stop him from getting set and getting his offense going. Once you do that and take him out of his comfort zone and not allow him to plant his feet and dig those body shots and fight you up close, I think if you keep changing up the looks on him and keep moving and keep making him shuffle his feet, I think he can be outboxed. I really do.
Wow,
Eric, I think you're selling Mr. No Doubt Trout very, very short here. I think he's going to show up and remind everybody how good he still is.
Wow. It's a shame that you're both wrong. It's amazing.
If you look at the fight, if you looked at his last fight against Tony Harrison, before Tony Harrison got caught, I thought he was winning the fight. I thought he was outboxing him.
Yeah, Harrison's a good fighter. Harrison's a good fighter.
And Austin Trout's got a good chin, and he's probably a little bit more defensively responsible than Harrison. So if he was having problems with Harrison, I think he's going to have problems with Trout. I think Trout can still fight. I thought Trout held his own against Charlo. I thought Charlo was going to blow him out the water. Fight interesting. I had that fight 115, 113, believe it or not. Trout was on the losing end, but I thought it was a close fight.
Yeah.
Closer than I expected.
There you go.
So I think Trout still got some left.
I disagree. And as usual, I'm always right. But we'll save the official particulars for next Sunday. So there you go. All right, let's talk about this one. This is good too. George Groves versus Jamie Cox, 12 rounds for Groves, WBA super middleweight title. And this is, of course, the World Boxing Super Series quarterfinals, or as Beeb and I call it, Super 6-2. George Groves, I think this is kind of a no-brainer. I mean, to me, I don't know a whole lot about Jamie Cox, but I don't see George Groves getting put out, But any thoughts, Beeb?
I don't know a ton about Cox, but Chris Eubanks Jr. was talking about Cox at the post-fight press conference, and he seems to think that the fight could be intriguing. Everyone expects Groves to win, but they're warning against Groves getting a little overconfident against Cox. I wish I knew more about Cox to have an opinion, but I have a feeling that this will be a decisive victory for Groves, possibly by knockout.
Yeah, for sure. What about you?
Well,
Robert?
Eric, what is Cox's record, and who has he fought to earn this title shot?
I think he probably just paid some money to get in the tournament. I don't know.
Yeah, he's in the tournament, so I mean, he advanced, and that's
there you go.
Par rules of the tournament. He gets a title shot, I guess.
Okay, all right.
On somebody's radar, maybe the WBA's. I don't know. Yeah. So yeah, but I'm taking George Groves big here. I think he wins. So yeah.
Yeah, no, George should win this since we don't know anything about his opponent. And, boy, I can't wait for him to sign on the dotted line with Chris Eubank Jr.
We do a show on this every week. We're plugged into boxing. We listen to the boxing news every week. We know a lot of the fighters. We know about 90% of the fight. I've never heard of Jamie Cox.
No. Nope.
What does that tell you about his opponent? And I love that Chris Eubank Sr. was talking about him. But did you, and I forgot to mention this in the earlier segment here, did you see the press conference between Yildirim and Eubank?
Yes.
Wow. Did that get heated or what? They were really heated. Yildirim's camp was really heated about Chris Eubank not showing. He no-showed one of the press conferences, and he showed up the next day, and his manager went at it. It was definitely more competitive than the Eubank Yildirim fight. That's for sure.
Oh yeah.
Nuts.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they went after each other. Wow.
It was going nuts.
Wow. So there you go. All right, let's talk about the news and rumors here. The big news this week. Louis Ortiz out against Deontay Wilder. Louis Ortiz got taken out of his shot against Deontay Wilder as a result of the failed drug test. And what can you do? I mean, hey,
he's got the dirty pee-pee.
That's true. That's very true. He peed dirty, and what are you going to do? So they put in.
I don't think the WBC had much choice here, Eric. I think he had to be removed. But I just don't like the fact of who we're stuck with, and you can tell everybody about that.
Bermain Stiverne gets the shot. And before we, that's right. So before we go into the Bermain Stiverne, let's talk a little bit more about this Ortiz and Wilder. Beeb, did they make the right decision? And I'll pose this question to both of you guys. Did they make the right decision by removing Louis Ortiz from this fight?
I disagree with it, but I don't vehemently disagree with it. I understand why it was done. But the WBC has shown a lot of inconsistencies in enforcing their policies. We've seen other fighters and be allowed to fight. Eric Morales, clenbuterol. Danny Garcia said he wanted to fight him. Fight went on. Francisco Vargas, positive clenbuterol, also. Still fought Orlando Salido. And then what happened was they think he paid a fine, and very, very stringently the rest of the way leading up to the fight. Romain Stavern told someone, I'm going to take this supplement that has DMAA in it, which is a very strong stimulant, fat burning properties, has stimulatory properties in it, and it actually can serve as a diuretic. Told the VADA tester right then and there, hey, I'm taking this to help me urinate. I'm so dehydrated right now, I can't give you a sample. So he took the sample, took the supplement, was able to provide a urine sample, but the tester, I believe, knowing full well that it had DMAA in it, he didn't say anything. He allowed him to take it. Consequently, he tested positive for the substance. But because he admitted that he was taking it, they gave him a slap on the wrist. He paid a fine, and he was not removed from their rankings, and he is still the mandatory challenger. So I think the big problem here with the Luis Ortiz situation is he did test positive before. In defense of the WBC, they also told Stavern if he tested positive again, that he would be suspended and he would be taken out of the rankings. So I think the way the WBC is looking at this is, this guy's already tested positive before. This is a second positive test, or even possibly a third. I know it's definitely a second. Eddie Hearn had mentioned it was a third. I don't know, but I know it's a second, definitely. And I think they looked at it in that way, and they said, this guy's already had one strike against him. If we don't do something now, then, we're going to be caught under a lot of scrutiny, and people are going to be criticizing us, and we're going to lose credibility. They've already have lost credibility in the past because of their inconsistencies, but maybe they thought they were going to lose more, whatever the case may be. I understand why they did what they did, but in the same token, Deontay Wilder said, hey, I still want to fight the guy. It was blood pressure medicine. Yeah. Did he follow protocol? Did he report it? Did he tell, WBC and VADA what he was taking before the testing started? No. Should he have? Yes. But, maybe he thought, hey, this is just blood pressure medicine. This won't come up positive on anything. But, to Victor Conti's point, because Victor Conti, we all know about him with the Balco scandal, he was looking at this whole situation. He was giving his opinion on it. And some of the items in the medicine were basically generic derivatives of the illegal substances that were on the WADA list. So even looking at the ingredients on the medicine, you could still say to yourself, hey, this isn't on the banned substance list. It's just like you have you take something like Claritin, but the medical term for Claritin is Loratadine, whatever, right? So you see something that says Loratadine in it, and Claritin may be on the banned substance list. So it's the same ingredient, same property, and you're going to test positive because the Loratadine technically is the Claritin, but you're not knowing it's Claritin because you're reading what's on the label. So I can understand the confusion in that regard. But at the end of the day, what this all boils down to is, like you said and I said last week, what's the first thing the doctor asks you when you get an examined? What are you taking? What's the first thing VADA asks you, in the questionnaire before you start the testing protocol? Let me know what you're taking. That wasn't done. Rule was broken. So, if he didn't have the past, maybe they would have let him skate by on this one. But because of the past, they didn't. But if it was me and I was Mauricio Suleiman, all things considered, I would have, fined him. I would have tested him very, very stringently for the duration of the testing leading up to the fight, and I would have allowed the fight to go on. But I'm not up in arms about the decision. I understand why it was done, but the boxing fan in me, and just looking at the whole situation, blood pressure medicine, I would have liked to have seen the fight go on, and if it was my decision, I would have allowed the fight to go on. That's just my opinion.
Robert, what about you?
Well, as I stated last week on another show, I take high blood pressure medication, and if a person suffers from this condition, and if they're a professional fighter, they're supposed to point these kind of things out. you're supposed to point out to the drug testing people, hey, I'm a diabetic. This is the kind of medicine I'm taking. Hey, I suffer from high blood pressure. This is the kind of medicine I'm taking. In most cases, if you're upfront and honest about it, the organizations will understand that you have something in your system and you won't come up positive. But, since he's Cuban and does not speak very good English, somebody in his camp didn't do what they were supposed to do here. And it basically cost Louis Ortiz probably the biggest payday of his life. And considering his age, he may not have much of a career left. He basically blew his shot here at a title fight because somebody in his camp didn't do what they were supposed to. And that's what I'm angry about, because let's face it, folks, we've already seen Bermane Stiverne and Deontay Wilder. We know how that fight turns out. Why the hell do we have to see it again? I would much rather see a new person on the stage, whether it be a Dylan White, a Louis Ortiz, somebody else. We don't need to see this again. You were talking about how you didn't want to see Abner Morris and Leah Santa Cruz. Well, we're going to see that again. Chances are and now we're going to see this again. We don't need to see something that's already been decided. This is a waste of time. Wilder and company should be fighting somebody else, but the WBC has the rules. They've somehow made him the mandatory challenger. I don't understand how. He hasn't done anything since he really fought Wilder. I don't know how he keeps this #1 ranking. I don't think he deserves it. I'll be glad when it comes and goes and we can get it over with.
2 words for you. Don King.
Exactly. I know.
Yep.
But no, I'm disgusted by it. I'm disgusted by this whole thing.
I don't know. I mean, and Beeb brought up a great point where he says that, like some of the ingredients, if you look at that banned substance list, it's huge.
It gets bigger and bigger every year.
It's
every year.
And the thing
I would fail that test now.
100%. 100%.
Take it.
Yeah. I mean, because stuff like ibuprofen is on there, things like that, or the ingredients in there. I mean, stuff like that, all that stuff is banned. So, I mean, you have to be like super careful. The problem is, he takes the high blood pressure medicine and everything like that, and it was prescribed for him. But, that is also a masking agent for the steroids. They say that it's, it causes him to, it's like a diuretic. It could get, it could be used as a masking agent for something that he's already been busted for in the past. I think that's a big deal. The fact that, again, and like Beeben mentioned, the fact that he's been busted for this in the past, I don't think you have any other choice. I really don't. I mean, and to your point, Robert, I mean, he's 38. He ain't coming back from this one.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, he's done. And I think you do take him out. And I think the WBC made the right move. Otherwise, why have this? Why have this? Why have it in place? And I hear people saying, well, what about the common sense? You should be able to use common sense. No, you should be able to use common sense because you are the one who signed up for it. You are the one who signed up for the clean program. You are the one that decided to get tested. You are the one responsible. He can point to his handlers. He can say he doesn't speak English. He can point to his handlers. The bottom line is he did the wrong thing. And why didn't he disclose this? That was the other thing. Why didn't he disclose this as soon as he got this? Why wasn't it disclosed? If it was on the up and up, listen, man, if you're fighting for the biggest prize in the game, if you're fighting for all this money and everything like that, and there's a chance, why would you just take some random medicine?
Well, it's the same thing with Manny Pacquiao.
Yeah.
Remember Manny Pacquiao when he had the bad shoulder and he didn't reveal it on the medical questionnaire before the fight with Mayweather, and then he requested the shot. So, I mean, I guess people do things for different reasons. I think Manny Pacquiao wanted to probably.
I think that's Apple.
Manny Pacquiao wanted to hide his injury because he didn't want to give a kind of a false sense of confidence to Floyd Mayweather, because he didn't want Floyd Mayweather to think he was going in there with an injured fighter.
Well, I think.
But in the same token, Well, he wanted the fight to go on too. But then you go and you ask for the shot. So you can understand, why people do what they do. I think Ortiz, excuses, but he could say, you know what, I'm taking blood pressure medicine. How am I going to fail a drug test by taking basic pressure medicine that a doctor prescribed to me? And real quick here, also, you hear the WBC say, okay, we're going to do an investigation. Well, what does this investigation consist of? What does it entail? Because that the medicine was prescribed by a doctor, okay? You knew that. And, it took a couple days. I think it took like a week or something for them to decide whether or not the fight was going to go on. So it seemed to me that the decision was made up as soon as he failed this test. Why even say there's going to be an investigation? Like, was there an investigation? And what were the findings of the investigation? Because if he could prove to you that the medicine was prescribed by a doctor, and the doctor can give a reason why he prescribed it to him, give him a medical reason, give the VADA and the WC a medical reason why the medicine was prescribed to him, then that would kind of explain the situation. So why say I'm going to do an investigation and then not really reveal what the investigation was and what you did? If the decision was made, then why even say, hey, we're going to investigate the guy? It seems like their mind was made up. Because I think if Luis Ortiz's team can provide evidence that the medicine was prescribed by a doctor, that this was an ongoing medication that he was taking, then I think that should be enough. And then they just find them and then just test them real stringently throughout the duration of the testing procedures. I don't know. I don't know. I just don't think that this is. I honestly don't think it's that big of a deal.
I don't know. I mean, I think, like I said, man, the fact that he was busted for it before, not good, man. And I think that may have played a big part in why the fight went the way it went. I don't know. I guess, we really won't really know for sure the motives behind it and everything like that, but that's the only thing we really, logically, that's the only thing I can think of. So now let's talk about the matter at hand. All right. Deontay Wilder versus Bermane Stiverne 2. All right. How do you see the fight going down? And does Stiverne really represent a credible threat to Wilder?
No.
How could this go any different? How could this go any differently? The only difference here is maybe he gets knocked out this time. And I say this with all due respect to Bermane Stiverne, but what has he done, as Robbie had mentioned earlier, what has he done to warrant this? And how could he have gotten better with, the inactivity that he's had after fighting Wilder and fighting someone that's really not even close to Wilder's level and squeaking by and arguably losing the fight. So I don't see how this fight could be any different than the first fight. I see it as being a lot worse than the first fight, a lot more one-sided than the first fight. And I think they should have tried to at least find someone else, even a Dillian White. Why? Why not? Why not? Or even Jarrell Miller. Why? I would even that would even be better than this.
Well, I've got news for you guys. And both of you guys are just flat out wrong. In 2015, November 14th of 2015, this is after the Wilder fight, he won a unanimous decision over Derek Rossi.
I know.
So if Derek Rossi doesn't,
and it was a lackluster
Derek
performance.
Rossi doesn't elevate you to fight for the heavyweight championship of the world, I think
it does not. Derek Rossi,
kidding me? Oh, how dare you, Derek Rossi? Come on.
He's a journeyman at best. Come on.
He's got a record
losses?
of 30 wins and 10 losses. That's
and he struggled to beat him too.
Competitive fight. Derek Rossi.
Yeah, and as Beeb said, Derek Rossi possibly won that fight, right, Beeb?
Yeah, that was not a walk in the park for Bermane Stiverne.
Yeah, it
Come on,
really
Eric,
wasn't.
I mean,
it really wasn't, man.
and Derek Rossi gets you the #1 ranking for the WBC.
And you know
Get
the
the
worst
hell
part?
out of here.
You know the worst part? He took step-aside money. Remember, Stavern had to take step-aside money so he could fight Louis Ortiz, so Wilder could fight Louis Ortiz.
Yeah.
He had to take the step-aside money. After he said he wouldn't do it, of course he's going to do it, you know. But, I thought in the first Wilder fight, the first Wilder-Stavern fight, I thought that Stavern was clearly outboxed. I think that was what impressed me about Wilder the most, is that he was able to just clearly outbox Stavern. I mean, in every sense of the word. I mean, got him in trouble in a couple of rounds, wasn't able to put him away. First fighter, of course, to go the distance with Wilder. I don't know, man. I don't see this as I don't see Stavern as a credible threat. I'm with you, Beeb, and I said this as soon as I found out that Louis Ortiz was going to get out, man. I'm like, as soon as he tested positive, I'm like, man, put Dillian White in there. That's a fight. That's a credible fight.
And something I just found out not too long ago, Eric, during that first fight, Wilder broke his hand in the 3rd round. That's why he boxed so much, because he felt like he couldn't knock him out being one-handed. So obviously Wilder's got constant hand problems. What's he going to do? Hit him again and break his hand, or we're going to be stuck to a 12-round snooze fest? I mean, you got to wonder about the conditioning and the health of Deontay Wilder here going forward. I mean, because eventually he's gonna get in there against somebody that he's gonna have to use both hands against.
Very injury prone too, and that's another thing. This is another reason why this is another reason why this Anthony Joshua fight should happen sooner than later, because
let's talk about that, Beeb, because that's actually more interesting than Stavern and Wilder.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what Beeb put out a video for all you guys who don't know. Beeb put out a video on Beating the Odds with Beeb, of course, where you can find all of our shows and all of his editorials and everything like that. I mean, Beeb does a great job with him. He always, gives you the good points and everything like that, breaks things down. So talk about that. Talk about that for a little bit. Talk about the Wilder Stavern, or the Wilder Joshua.
The big news this week is an interview that Anthony Joshua did with Johnny Nelson, who works for Sky Sports as an analyst. And Johnny Nelson asked not Deontay Wilder. He asked Anthony Joshua, is Deontay Wilder next? When you're going to fight Deontay Wilder? And Anthony Joshua replied, I'll fight the Deontay Wilder fight. When I'm ready, I will fight him. It could be 2019. It could be 2020. And this set a firestorm throughout the boxing community, particularly on YouTube, because we all had our opinions on it. A lot of people were actually defending Anthony Joshua's statements, saying they were okay with Anthony Joshua's statements. Well, at least he's being honest. Well, he has the right to pick and choose his opponents. He is the name. He is the A-side in the heavyweight division. He's the guy that everyone wants to fight. He's the money guy in the division. And, he can pick and choose who he wants to fight. And at least he's being honest, saying that he may not take Wilder right now. But my response to this is, when you're a champion of the world, you're supposed to be the baddest man on the planet. You're supposed to be ready for everyone. You're supposed to be able to take on all comers. And even if deep down inside you have doubts about who you can beat and who you can't beat, you should never, ever reveal that. That's like, when you go into a car dealership and you really want to buy this car, but you don't want the salesman to know that, because if he knows that, he's going to jack the price up on you, and he knows that you're going to take it because you're showing him that you really want the car. So sometimes you got to play, put your poker face on. You got to hide, any doubt or any anxiety that you have in your body. You should not reveal that to your opponent, because that just builds a seed. That just puts the seed of doubt in your mind, and it puts a seed of confidence in your opponent's mind. So those aren't things that a heavyweight champion, let alone a unified heavyweight champion, who just beat arguably the best heavyweight in the last 10 years in Vladimir Klitschko. Those aren't things that we want to hear from our champions, and those aren't things that we want to hear from the heavyweight champion of the world. So by him saying that, and then on the same token, Eddie Hearn saying that Anthony Joshua would knock Deontay Wilder out in 3 rounds, and he's saying that he wants the fight to happen in 2018. But the fighter himself is saying, hey, I'll fight the fight when I'm ready. There's no sense of urgency, basically implying and indicating to the public that, maybe he's not ready for Deontay Wilder. This is the same thing, that we had with Pacquiao Mayweather. Is this going to be one of those fights where it's going to be drawn out? Is Deontay Wilder have to be 35, 36 years old like Triple G was against Canelo? Are they going to wait for the right time and, therefore making the fight not be as entertaining as it would have been if it happened sooner than later? Because we don't want to see this fight happen when Deontay Wilder is not at his peak, not at his best. Anthony Joshua does have the advantage in age. He's 27 years old. Deontay Wilder will be 32 years old this month. He's older. He's got a little bit more wear and tear than Anthony Joshua. As I said, he's been injury prone. He's suffered injuries. So, the longer this fight takes to happen, obviously it's going to Anthony Joshua, but it's also going to be a disadvantage for us, the fans, because we're not going to see both fighters at their best. We're only going to see one fighter possibly at his best. And, that's just something that could happen. If this fight happens down the line, Deontay Wilder will probably have lost a step at that point. Possibly. I could be wrong. I'm speculating. But, that's definitely a plausible possibility. So, again, these are things that the heavyweight champion of the world should not be saying. The training wheels should be off at this point in his career. He's got 2 heavyweight title belts. He's in the top level of fighters now. He is in a different level now. He is not in prospect stage anymore. So he shouldn't be talking like a prospect. He should be talking and acting like the heavyweight champion of the world. Does that mean I'm not an Anthony Joshua fan? No. Does that mean I'm angry with him? No, I'm a little disappointed. Does that mean I still don't think he can beat Deontay Wilder? No. But what difference does it make if I think he can beat Deontay Wilder? What difference does it make if you think he can beat Deontay Wilder? If he himself, deep down in his own mind, does not believe it, and he has doubts. So I still think that this is the biggest fight that can be made in the heavyweight division. So it's not like, this wouldn't be a big money fight. It's not like he's going to be fighting a nobody. He's going to be fighting Deontay Wilder, who's definitely a good promoter in his own right. He's got the look. He's got the swag. He's got the personality. He's definitely a good dance partner that you'd like to have on the other side of the promotion table, right? USA versus America. This is a can't miss. The only way this could miss is if they, pass the expiration date. So I hope they don't pass the expiration date, and I hope this was just Anthony Joshua just blowing smoke and talking, and maybe just trying to, create a stir to kind of try to hype the fight up. I hope those things are all true, and I hope that this fight taking place in 2020 potentially is not true.
Well, here's a few opinions on this, and I could go both ways with this. One, I could say this is a negotiating play. This is a way for Joshua to stir the pot and get people interested in a possible fight, and he's just putting that out there. Or I could go another direction and say Eddie Hearn might be at fault here, because remember, after he beat Klitschko, Hearn came out shortly afterwards, I think in May or June, and said, now Anthony Joshua, the heavyweight champion of the world, the unified heavyweight champion of the world, is only going to be a 2-time-a-year fighter.
Yep.
And remember we covered that story here. I believe, yes, I believe he's the man of the division. I believe he's clearly the best. But I don't like this idea of just because he's a champion, that he only fights twice a year, because he only has 19 professional fights. I mean, he got lucky. He was able to take a title from a champion by the name of Charles Martin, who really didn't do anything to get the title in the first place. So he was served up. And then Joshua had 2 successful title defenses, and he literally grew up in the ring before our eyes on April 29th when he fought Klitschko. At the beginning, he made mistakes and got himself in trouble. He was able to knock down Klitschko, and Klitschko came back in the next round and knocked down Joshua, and then Joshua learned from that experience. I think he needs more ring experience, even though he is a unified heavyweight champion. I disagree with this. Well, he's only going to fight twice a year. He needs more ring time. He needs, I don't know. Like I said, he's either trying to stir up the pot to make this fight bigger, or he's really lost here because of not fighting very often. And also another thing comes into play here. He's got a 6-fight deal with Showtime. The fight with Pulev will be fight number 4, which means after the Pulev fight, he's got 2 fights left with Showtime. I believe in the next 2 fights, he will have to fight Wilder, because I do believe that he's eventually going to move over to HBO, because Eddie Hearn is taking his entire stable to HBO. And I think eventually Anthony Joshua will be over there. So if the Wilder fight is going to take place, it's going to have to be in the next 2 fights.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I Showtime, I'm pushing for that. That's for sure.
I'm not even against him fighting twice a year if they're good fights. I mean, that's not uncommon in today's boxing that a guy fights twice a year. Triple G is like the exception. He'll fight maybe 3 or 4 times a year, but most guys do fight twice a year when they reach this level. But again, at least have one of those fights be a good fight. We want to see 2 fights that aren't really competitive fights. We like to see 1 fight that's against the top level guy.
Do you think, Beeb, let me ask you, sometimes, the further a fighter goes in his career, you start to see flaws.
Sure.
You start to see flaws in him. With Errol Spence, you don't see any flaws until he gets into a scrap. You know what I mean? And then you say, well, maybe his defense, maybe he gets hit too much. Maybe there's defense is suspect, or whatever the case may be. And I'm not singling out Errol Spence. I'm just saying that the further a fighter goes in his career, you start to see, like Deontay Wilder, wow, he's knocking people out left and right. Now all of a sudden, you see some of the chinks in his armor, you see some of the weaknesses. Is Anthony Joshua's weakness his confidence? Maybe some lack of self-belief?
Well, this is the thing. Someone messaged me today. Well, if you watch the promos, obviously we can't see the promos because we don't live in the UK. One of the promos is Anthony Joshua saying, "I'm not perfect." So the person that was messaging me on my YouTube video in the comments was saying, "Yeah, you know what? He's just not arrogant. He's showing humility. This is him just letting people know that he still has to learn more in the sport of boxing. He still has to grow." All those things are great. You can still say those things. Andre Ward used to say, "Hey, you know what? I'm still learning in this game." But he always exuded confidence.
Right.
Okay? So if this is a promotional Anthony Joshua, who, we're not going to sell this guy as the brash, crude and rude type fighter, the bad boy, so to speak. We're going to market him as, you know what? He's just a nice, normal guy, normal Joe that you can meet on the street and strike up a conversation with, an everyday guy that, hey, he's just like you. He makes mistakes. He's still learning. He's not a know-it-all. He's not saying he can beat everyone in sight, But is that how you market somebody in terms of this type of setting?
The baddest man.
This isn't
right.
Yeah, this isn't basket weaving. You know what I'm saying? This isn't computer science. This isn't computer programming. This isn't something else in being a financial advisor. This is someone who has to be confident, because if you're not confident, you could freeze up in there. You could get hurt. This is battle. This is warfare. It's like, you don't think people, and again, this is kind of a strong comparison, But you take a military soldier. You don't think he's scared of dying every day when he's on the front lines? But these are guys that are paid and they're sent out there to protect us. So if you're being protected by these soldiers, and even the policemen protect and serve, and they're telling you, hey, you know what? I'm afraid. I don't know what I'm going to do once I go into battle. You're going to get nervous. These are people who go to war every day. They're paid to defend and protect you. So even though they're afraid, they can't show it on the battlefield. They have to fight the fear. They have to put that fear in the back of their mind in the deepest place possible where it can't resurface. A fighter is the same way. A fighter can be afraid, but he can't show fear. A fighter can be nervous. He can have doubt, but he has to constantly tell himself, you know what? I'm this. That's what champions do. That's what fighters like Andre Ward do. That's what fighters like Muhammad Ali did when their jaw's broken and it's swollen and it looks like they can't continue. When you're on the ropes and you're sitting there with punches from the baddest man on the planet, the heaviest hitter in the world, and you're just sitting there taking it. If you're not confident in yourself, you're not going to be able to succeed in this sport. So by saying you're not ready, it's okay to say, yeah, you know what? I still got a lot to learn. I still need more experience. I'm still going to get better as I get older. But when you say you're not ready, you're not, up to the task in front of you, that just shows a lack of confidence. So I don't know, Eric, to answer your question, I hope that that's not the case. Because if it is the case, then that's a bad thing. This guy has 2 titles right now. And, he just beat arguably the best heavyweight of our era. You can say what you want about Klitschko.
Right.
He could be the best heavyweight in our era. And I'm talking about, Tyson, after Tyson and Lennox Lewis retired, we had another era, and that's the Klitschko era. And you beat that guy.
He had 18 successful title defenses. You can't ignore.
I thought it was 20, but the thing is that you could be right, 18, whatever. 8, undefeated for the last 10 years. 10 years is an era. So he just beat arguably the best heavyweight in our era. And if you can't, build off of that, and you can't say, hey, that's a feather in your cap. I'm ready. If you're looking to go backward instead of forward, after you strap 2 title belts around your waist, that's a problem. That's a problem because outside of Wilder, who else is there? Outside of Wilder, who else is there to look forward to?
Right.
Who else could challenge this guy? Remotely challenge this guy outside of Wilder.
He should mention Wilder's name in every interview he has.
Exactly.
Calling Wilder the scaredy cat. He's holding that belt hostage. And as soon as I see him, I don't even have to have as soon as I see him, I'm going to take him straight down,
If I was him, you know what I would say? The real champion resides in the UK.
Right.
You want what I got? You want what I got? Come invade my hometown.
Right.
Come meet me. Come meet me at Wembley. And let's see who the baddest man on the planet is.
Right. That's what he should.
That's what you do. That's what you do. You set off fireworks. This fight could be huge. I got to get Eddie on the phone after this show. This fight could be huge.
Career killer.
What other fight could be bigger than this? Bigger than this. We already saw Canelo Triple G. Canelo Triple G. You can't throw that in Wembley and sell out 90,000 in seconds. Come on, baby. I'm getting hyped up right now.
That's another thing about this whole thing. I view Wilder and Joseph Parker as very weak heavyweight titleist. I think Joshua could beat both of them in his sleep, and I do believe, whether people like it in the United States or not, Anthony Joshua has an incredible home canvas advantage. He's the man in the division. Everybody should have to go to him to fight. He should not be forced to have to leave and go anywhere else to fight. I know that it'll be a bigger deal here in the States. I know he'll get paid quite a bit of money, But let's face it, how many people in the boxing game today can fill up a 90,000 seat stadium? Other than maybe Canelo, it's Anthony Joshua. He's got to use that to his advantage. And, if I was on Joshua's team and I was negotiating, I would basically say, I'm the heavyweight champion of the world. I've got 2 titles. You want to fight me? You got to come where I am. I'm not going anywhere.
There it is. There it is. Beeb, it's time.
Train wreck of the week for you right now. Do it.
Chugga, 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 choo, choo.
There it is.
Good job.
Nice job. Nice
Way to
job.
go.
The
Yeah.
train wreck of the week. December 2nd at Madison Square Garden, Miguel Cotto takes on the top pound-for-pound fighter in the world. Well, no, not really. For weeks, Cotto has been going on and on about how he wants to fight the winner of Triple G Canelo. Instead, he takes on the powerhouse known as Saddam Ali. Yeah, that's your big send-off. You had David Lemieux right there waiting for you. No, I don't want to fight him. I want to fight Saddam Ali. Maybe he just doesn't fight. Why fight? Why go through with the fight? If you're not, he goes on and on about how he wants to fight. He's doing this, he's doing that. Is anybody as disappointed as I am?
I feel bad. Honestly, I feel bad for Saddam Ali. His weight class is 147. Miguel Cotto's not fighting at 147. Ali's got to go to 154. That's terrible.
It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. Beeb, any thoughts?
Oh wow. I just hate I hate being a negative Nelly, man, but the fight really doesn't make any sense.
None. None at all.
It doesn't make any sense. And that's all. What else can I say? The fight makes no sense. Especially if you're Miguel Cotto.
Yeah.
Saddam Ali's still a kid, right? I mean, what's this going to prove?
I mean, he got flattened by Jesse Vargas. I mean, what? Yeah, really,
Yeah.
What is this going to prove? I don't get it. I don't get it at all. That's for sure.
Way to go, Oscar. Way to go.
Yeah, making money.
This is a guy that's been telling everyone, hey, I want to put on the best fights possible, the biggest fights possible.
Yeah.
But Oscar, let's go, man. Show and prove. What's up? What's up?
I think Corey's on the line. We're actually going to get to you in the next segment because I've got some big news for Corey. But first, before we go there, Hall of Fame ballots were handed out to writers this week. Some of the notable names on the list: Paulie Ayala, Nigel Benn, Donald Curry, Chris Eubank, Ricky Hatton, Vitaly Klitschko, Rocky Lockridge, Buddy McGirt, Eric Morales, Winky Wright, and Vinny Paz, among others. I think Vitaly Klitschko in 3, I think you can choose 5, only 3 go in. I think Vitaly Klitschko is probably a no-brainer. Am I wrong about that? I think he gets in.
No.
No-brainer. No-brainer.
I think Ricky Hatton gets in. But I don't know. I think he does. I think
I'm about 85 to 90%. Well, I'm like 85% sure Ricky Hatton gets in.
Yeah. Eric Morales, does he get in?
No-brainer.
No brainer. I think Vitaly Klitschko and I think Eric Morales
are locks.
No-brainers. They're locks. All right. That leaves the best of the rest. Paulie Ayala, very good fighter. Hard to deny, but
I don't think so.
Nigel Benn, again, good career, unbelievable fighter. Chris Eubank, same way. Winky Wright, I mean, that guy's a killer, man. But let's talk about Vinny Paz for a minute. Does Vinny Paz?
Joe?
Huh? Friend of the show, absolutely. Friend of the show. Does he belong in the Hall of Fame? He's got a record of 50 wins, 30 KOs, 10 losses. He's a 5-time world champion. Broke his neck. Came back and won a world title. Broke his neck. I'll say it again, and came back from that. I got to be honest, man. I put him in. Why? I mean, listen, man, and you may disagree with me. He's had a great career. I think if he's not Hall of Fame worthy, then who is? I mean, really, you think about that.
I'll
think
tell
about
you something.
Look,
I'll tell you something else, too.
Eric. If Vinny Pazienza doesn't get in, then they should take Arturo Gatti out of the Hall of Fame.
100%.
I'll tell you something else, too. At the time, I think he was one of the very few, if not the first, and correct me if I'm wrong, anybody. I think he was the first fighter that won a title at 135 and 154.
I think you're probably right.
That is correct.
Yeah.
I think he was at that time. He was the first guy to do it, and I think he's only a handful of fighters right now to have achieved that. I know Oscar De La Hoya did it, Pernell Whitaker did it, and he did it, and Roberto Duran did it. Who else has done it? Just to be able to accomplish that. So, he's in the record books.
Not to mention, again, I mean, to have that accident happen to him in the prime of his career and to come back and win another title, it's unheard of. It's unheard of. And, take all that out. Just take all that out. I think he gets on his boxing merit alone. I think you take the accident out. You take the broken neck out. You take all of it out. You take the story, everything out. He gets in. I think he gets in on his own merit. I think, had none of this happened, 50 wins, 30 by KOs, he's a 5-time world champion. I think he gets in.
Yep. No, Vinny Pazienza.
Fought everybody.
Eric Morales.
Everybody.
When is the ceremony, Eric?
Vitaly Klitschko. Those are the three that should get in.
I agree.
When's the ceremony?
I don't know. And I don't know. I know the ballots went out. Yeah, it'll be in June, but I don't know when they actually name them. I know the ballots have to be.
Yeah,
other good stuff.
I'm a huge Vinny Paz fan. I hope he gets in.
I love Vinny Paz, man, and he's a friend of the show. Let me tell you a quick Paz story. It was funny, man. I was talking to his publicist, and we follow each other on Twitter and everything like that. And she says, "Yeah, we're going to have, because I've been asking, it's when the movie came out, I say, can we get Paz on the show? We're all big fans of him, and she says, yeah, we're going to get him on there. And he was, in Pazienza, this is at a point where he's doing major news. Major news markets and everything like that. I'm talking big radio stations, big TV stations, and took time out to come on our show, to give us an interview and everything. And it was funny because he had called me. I'm sitting at home. I'm watching TV. It's 10 o'clock at night. My phone rings. And I'm like, I don't recognize the area code. I don't recognize anything. And I pick up the phone. It's Paz. It's Vinny Paz. We talked for about an hour. And he couldn't have been nicer. He was such a funny guy. He had great stories and everything like that. And this wasn't on the air. This was just me and him talking, while I'm watching TV. It's like, I was watching TV at the time. He gives us a call, and I'm just talking to him, just a straight conversation, And he also came in. And then the next day, of course, we recorded the interview and everything like that. But the guy couldn't have been nicer. To give us that much time. Yeah, he's an unbelievable guy. I wish him nothing but the best. And I do. He deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. No question about it. No question about it. So there you go. Hopefully they do the right thing and put him in. Hopefully they do. So, all right, let's move ahead here. Tony Bellew versus David Haye is set. We talked about this last week. This fight, this is another one. We talked about, we've been talking about a lot of fights that don't make any sense here. The Abner Mars Santa Cruz fight. And I got to put this up there with that one, the Tony Bellew David Haye fight, the rematch. I'll tell you what, David Haye, honestly, after seeing that fight last night, I don't think he's a credible threat to anybody in the heavyweight division. I really don't. Tony Bellew's management team should be ashamed of themselves for not being able to capitalize on the big win against Haye. You really should fire these guys. Because if this is all they could get you.
The only thing I can think of here, Eric, is that Haye had a rematch clause somehow. Because otherwise he doesn't deserve this fight. And why hasn't Bellew fought anybody since he fought Hay? I don't get that either.
Yeah,
I think he was waiting for a big fight, and this fight will still be a big fight. This fight could be marketed like, hey, you know what? It was a fluke. David Hay hurt his Achilles. If he didn't hurt his Achilles, even though I disagree with that because I thought Bellew was still winning the fight before the Achilles tear. But the thing is this: these guys got history. The build-up before the fight takes place is always epic with these two guys. So it's still a marketable, sellable fight. I really would have loved to have seen Tony Bellew fight Joseph Parker. I think that's definitely a winnable fight for him.
That's the fight.
And it's the easiest path to a heavyweight title.
That's the fight.
That would be an awesome fight.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen that.
Or Tony Bellew and Deontay Wilder were talking about it. I mean, they were talking about getting.
Let's put it this way: anybody in Joseph Parker, that title's easily had right now. You could take that title blindfolded.
Wow.
Say he beats Joseph Parker, right? Anthony Joshua. Say him and Deontay Wilder go at it in the unification bout. Tony Bellew. Oh my God, the way both of these guys can talk, personalities. I really like Tony Bellew a lot. He's just he's a likable guy, but he's not like so squeaky clean that he's dull and boring person. He's an honest guy. He's a nice guy, friendly person, very honest, like I said. But he's got enough swag, got enough of that pizzazz, where he's not boring, where he's not too nice, where he's not that squeaky clean type choir boy guy. And because of that, he's just entertaining at these press conferences and he's really good at hyping up a fight, man. So that would have been awesome, him versus
But Beeb, say he beats Parker and he beats Wilder, wouldn't then he be forced to fight Joshua? And of course Joshua would probably murder him, but I'd hate to see that.
I don't think you'd be forced to do anything, really. I don't think you have to. Just think about it. How long were the Klitschko's the two-headed monster at heavyweight? They never were forced to fight each other, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's true. And, of course, they were brothers. They weren't going to fight each other anyway.
Tony Bellew, friend of the show.
Yeah, Tony Bellew. That was a great – I really enjoyed him, man. He was funny.
He was great, man. He's awesome. He's such an awesome guy.
I hope you can get him again. I really enjoyed both of those interviews with him and Vinny Paz. That was excellent work. Vinny Paz was funny.
Yep.
Oh, Vinny Paz is great. You know what? The best part about Vinny Paz is that the interview on the air that we posted, that we got him to do on the air, paled in comparison to the conversation I had with him. I mean, he is unbelievable.
Next time you see that number on the caller ID, like pop open your recorder.
Right? And I was talking to him. I mean, we just got to talking, man. I mean, that's the thing. We just got to talking. And it was like, I mean, next thing you know, it was like an hour later. I mean, we talked for right around an hour. And I mean, it wasn't recorded. It wasn't an interview. And it was just like, wow, I mean, just like talking to somebody, one of your long lost friends or whatever. All right. I am going to bring on Corey now. Area code 804. Corey has been on hold. He's been very honorary in the chat. Corey, you are responsible for David Hay. You and only you are responsible. Let me tell you what Corey said in the chat. Corey said, if David Hay doesn't win by deadly and vicious knockout, I will donate $50 to the show. Well, Corey, we know how you pay your bets around here. So we're not really counting on that. But David Hay is washed. We already have the
attorneys looking at it.
We're going to have the attorneys.
We already have the Beeb Industries law firm legal.
I'm letting Beeb Industries handle it all. What's going on, fellas? How's everybody doing today, man?
What's happening, man?
We're good.
Doing good, man. Look, this is what I was going to tell y'all, man. the fights that are coming up is gonna be, you know, pretty good. You know what I mean? And what I was gonna say is, with the whole Wilder Ortiz situation, do you think that's gonna bring more light to the boxing and the drug testing? Because to be honest with you, if you're not in the top 3 to top 5 heavyweights, you're not getting tested as much as the top tier heavyweights. So you can probably, there's a saying that goes, you know what I mean? You know, you keep cheating, it's gonna eventually bite you in your ass. You know what I mean? And how much, you know, you want to cheat all the way up until you get to the elite heavyweight, and then you just get knocked the fuck out because you're not on juice anymore? I think Deontay Wilder, you know, he did an interview the other day on this other show, and I was listening to him, and he said, what's Ortiz gonna do next? What do we have to do so these motherfuckers will stop cheating? I mean, are we gonna have? I mean, he said the next thing that they're talking about doing, and this is per Deontay Wilder out of his mouth. He said they're gonna start locking motherfuckers up because this is a deadly sport, and when you're on juice, it makes it deadlier.
Mm-hmm.
Do I have a point or no?
Yeah, you absolutely do. I think, you know, in a perfect world, it would be kind of like the UFC, where they got, what is it, USADA, isn't it? I think it's USADA. Is that right, Beeb?
Correct. Yeah, they got this.
All right. And they catch everything over there. And, you know, like I said, when John Jones tested positive at UFC, was it 200 or something like that? They took him off the card. That was their main event. They pulled off the card. That's the only thing that's going to stop it.
But you got guys tested positive, like the Danny Garcia, Eric Morales.
Yeah,
Eric Morales tested positive, and they're still fighting.
It's awful. You can't. Why have a test?
And that was a WBC. That was a WBC sanctioned fight.
Right.
And they still fought.
They've done a lot of shady stuff. We were talking about that too today.
That was a known steroid that Eric Morales had in his body. Did they let it pass because Eric Morales is a legend? Did they let it pass because Eric Morales held the WBC belt before? At what point do they let shit pass until somebody gets seriously hurt?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't respect the sport in that aspect. Respect the sport in that aspect.
Yeah, somebody's going to get hurt.
Guy a fair one.
Yeah, somebody's going to get hurt, man.
You want a fair one? Hold on real quick. You want a fair one? All Deontay Wilder right now is asking for, and I mean, I'm not necessarily a Deontay Wilder fan. You know what I mean? Because I think all of these fucking heavyweights will get crushed by Mike Tyson in his prime. That's my personal opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, if you put Deontay Wilder versus Anthony Joshua right now, I'm going the complete opposite route of fucking Robbie on the show. Shout out to Robbie. He's been quiet. You've been listening to a master talk. Now, you just be quiet and listen. What I'm trying to tell you is,
I never have to be quiet, Corey.
Deontay Wilder will fucking viciously KO Anthony Joshua.
Yeah, with a broken hand,
rounds.
Right? Mm-hmm.
Within 5 rounds.
Sure.
Robbie, suck it up.
Sure.
Suck it up, Robbie. It's the truth. You wouldn't know the truth, Robbie, if it bitched.
And Anthony Joshua is the man in the heavyweight division, and one of these days, those two will get together, and we'll find that out.
But how are we going to get it together when, you know, all the fucking Deontay Wilders, you know what I mean, so-called foes are, you know what I mean, are, you know, failing drug tests and all. And then you got fucking Anthony Joshua over there saying you got Anthony Joshua and his high price, you know, promoter Eddie Hearn talking about 2020. They might not fight until 2020.
I think that's a promotional ploy, Corey. I think that fight will happen. I think that fight will happen next year.
That's on record.
I think that fight will happen next year because he's got 2 more fights with Showtime after he fights Pulev. I think he will fight sometime next year against Wilder. That's my prediction anyway.
My prediction, Robbie, you're a little outdated with your predictions, okay? You got to let some of the new callers step in. What it is, Robbie, listen, what it is, this is not the George Foreman era. This is not the Muhammad Ali era. They fought each other. They fought each other on cue.
You know what? That's something else we could talk about, guys. Did you hear that George Foreman challenged Steven Seagal to a Las Vegas fight?
I did. I heard that, man.
Robbie.
Yep.
That has those. Listen, Robbie. Those magical fights that are karate and boxing mixed, they have no place on the show. Come on, Robbie. You're better than that, Robbie. Come on, Robbie. How would you cut off your master to talk about Steven Seagal?
That's awesome. That is awesome.
You need to be bad. We need to drug test Robbie. Oh my God. So that's the best thing you could come up with on a Sunday night about boxing. Hey, come on.
Come up with anything you like. I've been coming up with stuff all night.
Robbie.
Corey on fire today.
But look though, man.
He sure is. But you know what? It's not doing any good.
On a serious note, man. Not talking about Robbie. Not talking about Steven Seagal, Robbie. I'm not talking about Steven Seagal right now.
All right.
On a serious note, I honestly think that Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua won't happen until 2020. I'm on record by saying that. And I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is. If you think about it, that's no.
Well, we know how Corey likes to pay his bets, so we're safe in that.
I mean, I pay my bets off, especially the money bets. Beeb Industries backing me. Let's go, baby.
Beeb Industries backing him.
What I'm trying to tell you is that I'm backing Deontay Wilder, man. That right hand is vicious. I've never seen somebody withstand that vicious right hand, man. All 12
it's
rounds.
Not broken, it's vicious.
And I mean, Bermain Severn, withheld it, but at what cost? What Bermain Severn are y'all gonna see in this fucking rematch that nobody's talking about? What fucking? And it's not
Bermain Severn is a baked potato that was in the oven for too long, and you can't stick a fork in him fast enough.
I mean, just be honest with me, y'all. Before the Deontay Wilder fight with Bermain Severn Wilder won. What would y'all rate Severn on that? I feel like he's decreased. I feel like he's lost a couple steps since that fight.
He's lost more than a couple.
That's my personal opinion. And do y'all think Severn even has a chance? Because
Nope.
This is a fight that is happening. This is a fight that is happening, and it's happening pretty quick. 3 more weeks.
He'll be going to sleep, Corey. Mark my words.
Lost a couple steps. I think he fell down the flight of stairs.
Yep. He gonna be going to sleep really fast. I think this fight will get over with early. God help us if we have to go another 36 minutes with these two.
Yeah, I don't think he knocks him out. I think he gets stopped, though. I think he gets stopped because of fatigue. I think that Bermain Severn is going to come in the fight. I don't think he's going to be in the best shape. And I think he's going to get stopped due to fatigue in the later rounds.
He's getting stopped this time. I think he's getting stopped this time.
I hope it ends quickly.
I mean, do y'all see any heavyweights? Within the next 3 to 5 years, challenging Anthony Joshua or Wilder? Do y'all see any up?
Hard to say. I don't see any up and coming. I don't, but it's hard to say, man.
What about Big Baby Miller? Is Big Baby Miller the truth?
No.
Is Big Baby Miller the truth?
Well, he's got to lose weight, Beeb. He's too big.
Wow, you fat shaming Baby Miller.
What do y'all? Well, can I ask y'all a question?
No.
Can all y'all answer this? Each one of the panelists. I want to know what y'all's top 5 heavyweights are in the division right now.
All right. Well, let's just give.
Can y'all even list 5 heavyweights?
All right. Well, let's. I mean, of course, you got Joshua Wilder, Parker. You have Tony Bellew. I think it's got to be up there as a legitimate threat.
Tony Bellew as a
Tony Bellew. Yep.
Do you remember Tony Bellew? That's the guy that knocked out your boy David Hay. Do you remember him? I don't know if you know him or not. David Hay, the one that's not a legitimate threat at heheavyweight anymore.
Ricky Conlon. Do you know that name?
Pretty Ricky Conlon.
Yeah.
What is this show turning into, man? But no, look, all I'm saying is y'all's top 5 heavyweights. I mean, Robbie, I know your top 5 heavyweights is Anthony Joshua.
No. Look, Anthony Joshua is clearly 1. Wilder is number 2. Parker's 3 because they have the belts. Beyond that, I agree with Eric.
I feel like and that's another thing. I'm glad you stepped to the Tony Parker situation because that's something that needs to be addressed on this show. We're talking about boxing and we're talking about champions, and the heavyweight division is supposed to be the premier division out of all boxing. Why not talk about one of the belt titleists as opposed to any other body? You know what I mean? Because what we're talking about right now is we're talking about a champion that the greats have held his belt. Mike Tyson, Holyfield, Muhammad Ali. All of these guys have held the belt that Joseph Parker has. He has the premier heavyweight championship of the world. And, I feel like I feel like some of these second, even third tier champions. I mean, contenders. Even some of these third tier contenders would beat the shit out of Joseph Parker. Would beat the shit out of Joseph Parker.
Well, Joseph Parker is the weakest titleist in the heavyweight division in a very long time. But I've got to give the man credit. At least he's been active. Since he won the title, he's had 2 title defenses, and granted,
he's had two title defenses that were both questionable.
Yeah, absolutely, they were, and that just shows the weakness of his title reign. That's why if you're Tony Bellew, that's why if you're Deontay Wilder, and that's why if you're Anthony Joshua, you go after this man and you take his title because it's a hanging fruit. It needs to be taken.
I think that guy, you know what, I'm reaching on this one, y'all. I'm reaching on this one, but I honestly feel like, and just mark my words, I know y'all gonna, this show is gonna be saved again, in the next year or two. I feel like in the next year or two, and mark my words, in the next year or two, when this whole Muhammad Ali trophy tournament is over, I feel like Usyk is gonna take over the fucking heavyweight division. Mark my fucking words. Coming from cruiserweight. I'm not joking, dude. I'm throwing the bank on Usyk. Beeb Industries and Corey Emery, we're fucking taking over. We're betting it all. We're betting the house, baby, on Usyk. Because his technical skills are awesome, man. He gets trained by Lomachenko's father, Lomachenko's dad, and his trainer. That's who Usyk's trainer is. And he's just Lomachenko, plus 100 pounds. He's a beast, man. Did y'all ever study this guy?
I'll tell you what,
he's an Olympic gold medalist from the Ukraine.
I would love to disagree with Corey on this one, but I can't. I like Usyk a lot. And I think he walks that tournament. Him and Chris Eubank Jr. were the ones I picked to win the tournament. Yeah, I'm not hating that at all. Yeah, I can definitely see that because I think once he wins it, there's no money at cruiserweight. He's clearly going to go to heavyweight. He's going to be a problem. He's going to be a big problem. So, yeah.
You got to understand the technical abilities that he has. If he doesn't have to go for the knockout. He can outsmart you for 12 rounds. He can use the right hand. He can use the left hand. And he's southpaw. To put, everything on blast, he's a southpaw too. A lot of these heavyweights haven't even seen a southpaw. I mean, let's face it. What good southpaws are in the heavyweight division as we speak right now? I'm waiting.
To be honest with you, Corey, I don't think there's any decent southpaw at heavyweight right now. None. Am I right? Eric, Beeb, am I missing somebody?
Ortiz.
Well, he's done.
Yeah, but that's your question. There's a question right there. Ortiz. Louis Ortiz.
Yeah.
Ortiz shouldn't even be talked about on the show anymore. He's last year's news. He's last year's news.
He had the dirty pee-pee. He's out.
I mean, not even dirty pee-pee. His whole everything about him. He's not marketable. He's old as shit. He cheats. What the fuck? How can you market this guy? I mean, how can you make money in the sport when you're not marketable? You don't speak any fucking English. You've been in America for 20 years. I mean, I don't understand the guy, man. A lot of these guys come over here and they think they're going to just make it in America without speaking English. You're in America, man. You got to learn some type of English.
Got to be marketable.
Fuck, ain't nobody, even Golovkin, learned English. His English is getting a lot better. Haven't y'all noticed that?
Yeah, I mean, it's it's one of those things. If you come over here and you speak English, and they can market you and they can put you on TV, and it just makes you more money. It's that simple. So, Corey, we're gonna get running here.
Man, look, I'm gonna wrap it up. Yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up because I gotta go. I gotta get up early in the morning. I gotta work at 5:30 in the morning. But all I'm gonna tell y'all is, man, great show. I love calling. I love making y'all laugh. I love all the panelists. My uncle just passed away last Wednesday, so it's been kind of tough. I love listening to the show every day to go to work, man. Y'all are an awesome show. I love listening to everybody on the show, man. Even if I don't call in, man, y'all still got me, man. I'm still here with y'all.
Well, thank you very much, Corey. Thank you very much, man. And we love having you on the show for sure. Definitely makes the show brighter for sure. All right, let's move ahead here. Anthony Durrell versus Dennis Dogland is set. The fight is set for November 17th in Flint, Michigan. Yeah, it'll be good to get primetime fight there in Michigan. Those people definitely deserve it, especially in Flint. As far as the matchup goes, I'm kind of lukewarm on it, but I think it'll be a decent fight. What are your thoughts on that, Robert?
Since I don't know anything about his opponent, I think it'll just be another fight, Eric, to be honest with you. And the display the Durrells put on in May with that whole Maryland card with the whole shenanigans with their uncle and crap.
Yeah,
you never know what you're going to get out of that camp. So.
Yeah, no doubt. Hopefully it doesn't go that route, but you never know.
Robbie said it best.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some sad news to report. Yeah, some sad news to report. The Kronk Gym in Detroit, the famous Kronk Gym in Detroit, Michigan, was destroyed by a fire this weekend. Yeah, Kronk is famous for having champions, of course, like Thomas Hearns, Milt McCrory, Lennox Lewis, Vladimir Klitschko, and just a billion others that we couldn't even possibly begin to name. Yeah, many fighters came out of that Kronk Gym. Emmanuel Stewart brought out many fighters. Many champions came out of that gym. Of course, Thomas Hearns being the most famous of them all. They said that it was burned down this weekend, and they do suspect some kind of foul play, something. Unfortunately, they are investigating it like there was like some kind of foul play involved or whatever. But, I mean, whatever happened. It's just awful story, man. Awful. So, yeah, very sad news there. So, all right, that'll do it for this edition of Ringside Reporter. As always, you can catch Robert on Twitter at Ringside Robert or call Ringside Robbie's Corner at 917-259-1810. Leave him a message. You can catch Joe Habib on Twitter at JHabib1 and find his YouTube channel at beatingtheoddswithbeeb.com. I'm at Ringside 73, and we will see you next week.
All right.